Hello and welcome to episode 9 of Alternate History of the World. Let's get into it. So last episode, if you didn't watch it, go watch it now. Because you won't understand what this is. Welcome to World War II, and here are the sides. The blue is the circle alliance, the red is the square alliance, the yellow is the diamond alliance, and the green is the triangle alliance. Let's start. So firstly, we are going to be starting over in Persia, where the first Ottoman troops invaded, specifically over here. Well, they will be going ahead and taking and capturing this area. And also they will be sending troops into the northern part of North Persia along in order to cut them off from the Caspian Sea. As this is a pretty weak country, they're kind of surrounded, that's mainly why. And also this country here is pretty weak compared to its neighbors, as it gets split in half within the first few weeks of this war, of World War II, as they are just completely surrounded. And this frontier is going to, over time, be forced into surrendering. And the front lines over here, we are going to see the Diamond Alliance able to push back against Afghanistan with Indian and Chinese armies. As the as the red team is also going to be separating these two, and this Persian country is even more gone. As the square lines will also be pushing back against them over here. But the circle lines is going to be able to greatly push back in India and eventually capture New Delhi. And well, with help from airplanes, they will be able to connect with each other. Since we're in like the 70s, I think now. I think are we in the 80s? Time are we in? But I know it's somewhere in between the 50s and the 90s or 2000s. I don't know when, but I don't know. And China is also going to be invading Germany in Southeast Asia, but mainly specifically in the Thai areas because the Germans will be making a stable front line in Vietnam. Yeah. When we go to Africa, it's a pretty big failure for the good. It's pretty big for the Triangle Alliance, as they would be able to knock out both of these very weak countries in the Circle Alliance, and will be able to greatly push back against the Diamond Alliance and take the capital of Nigeria. And they're also starting to push back in Liberia. Yeah. And well, most of the Africa is on the side of the triangles, so this red country in the Square Alliance is going to quickly fall. And also more and more front lines troops will be able to go ahead and capture these Algerian areas. And eventually, let's just get this over with, as the Triangle Alliance troops from, well, South America will be going ahead and, well, surrounding all these areas. As the red area is falling very quickly, and eventually the yellow area will just be forced to surrender. As the Triangle Alliance gets more influence over Northern Africa, the next area they have to push against is the Panama Canal, and most of South America is focused on this canal, and within a few weeks, they will lose control, the Germans. In the Triangle Alliance, they're also doing very successfully over in Canada, as these countries are being used for their resources. And well, they just quickly surrender, realizing that the only reason they joined the Diamond Alliance was to support the Chinese with their resources, which isn't very ethical. Yeah. In these areas, we'll be quickly surrendering, as well, they don't really want to fight this war anyway. And China is mad at this, but what can they do about, but what can they say to countries that don't exist? Nothing? Yeah. But the Triangle Alliance, which is doing very well in the Americas, is going to make the front line look like this, as they also start pushing back against Germany over in their American colony. And well, time to go back to Eurasia. As the Germans will be time to finally go to Europe, as the Germans will be invading into England, the United Kingdom, as this country in the Square Alliance is just very not weak, but they're nil. But the Swedish will be able to push back against the Germans over in Norway, again, or just against Norway, and they'll be able to defeat them. But they won't be able to defeat the communists just yet. And the communists are actually gonna start having a pretty big pushback against the Germans as they go ahead and capture Estonian areas and start a pretty big push into Ukraine, as they believe a push into Ukraine is going to really help their economy and really help with stopping this giant German empire. No, that doesn't happen. But the Germans will also be invading down to Italy, the Italian peninsula, and are quickly able to take over the whole peninsula. As the Germans will also be pushing over into Spain, into the Spanish territories, quickly pushing them out of the French areas and pushing into Catalonia. They'll also be making a landing right here, and another one right here. As well, the Triangle Alliance also makes a big landing in Spain. But Spain is a pretty big country, so the Ottomans will be sending a lot of troops to it. The Germans will be defeating the Ottomans over in the Hungarian areas, as they will be able to push back greatly. But the Ottomans, where they're also doing very well, is where they historically were, is, well, Crimea, as they will be going in through the Crimean Peninsula and eventually taking over these parts of Ukraine. And Germany is losing a lot of Ukraine. When we go over here, we can see that this Persian country finally surrenders, and very quickly, this country is also going to be falling. Yeah. And when we go to Japan, Japan is going to lose the remainder of this island, but, well, they will also be losing this island, but they will also be losing this island. But they have so good defensive forces that they are able to beat the Chinese Navy, and, well, the Japanese forces are actually able to make a landing in South Korea, pretty big one, and take over South Korea. Yeah. When we go to the big mess called Oceania, the Chinese will be pushing back against the Germans a lot, but after the German invasion, first the Chinese or the Diamond Alliance will be able to take the whole island of Borneo and will be able to eventually take over Java and do a massive push into Sumatra. As they will also be making landings throughout the entire oceanic continent in order to attempt and take it over. The Ottomans are doing very well over here in this area, as they don't really worry too much. But the Triangle Alliance, most of the troops are over in the Americas and Africa fighting against the Germans. But yeah, New Zealand falls, and so does Tanzania, and eventually the front line in Oceania will look something like this. Yeah. When we can go over here, the Indians over in here will be able to greatly push back against the Ottomans and or just the South Indian country, and will be able to take out Sri Lanka. And oh, I forgot about these southern African fronts. Whereas these areas are being pushed back by the German forces. Well, yeah. Until the Triangle Alliance also starts pushing back greatly over in these areas. But an area where the Germans are doing well is the coastline of the Red Sea, as they're able to fully capture the region. And they're also able to go ahead and take the Cairo area, but they won't be able to reach the Suez Canal, as it's too valuable to them. As the Germans will also be going ahead and capturing more Libyan coastlines, like this. But the Triangle Alliance is over here, going to push back here. And some people are realizing that Germany might be making, well, a sort of way, like a sort of connected path in order to connect and beat the Ottomans. That's what they're realizing. As the Germans will be greatly pushing back in southern Africa as they defeat this Namibian country and will be doing major pushbacks against the Diamond Alliance over in the north and the south as they connect their Tanzanian areas. And well, this Diamond Alliance area is pretty weak compared to the rest, as they recently just gained independence. Well, some of these countries up here gained independence a long time ago. So eventually, these Diamond Alliance countries are just going to surrender over to either side, and these are sort of where they meet up. And this is what the African front line looks like, as Africa is already fully divided between the Germans and the Triangles. When we go over here, we can see that the Diamond Alliance is having a lot of major defeats around the world, specifically over here and basically everywhere. But the Germans will be able to hold on against the entire American forces until eventually New York is captured. which is the capital of this colony that the Germans forced instead of DC. DC is still a major city. They definitely didn't blow it into smithereens. Oh wait, they sort of did, but they have had time to rebuild. Until eventually basically the German colony falls. And well, this is what the front line of the world looks like so far. The Triangle Alliance is very successful in its operations. It is able to send troops all the way over into Eurasia now. And that is going to do it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed today's episode of Alternate History of the World. See you next episode where we will look at the continuation of World War II. Bye!